Alright YouTube, I've got another video for you guys. Some of my friends are getting into League of Legends now, they're new to the game, and I hear this every single time we play together. Who is the best League of Legends champion? Now that answer is highly subjective, but I wanted to use my background in data analytics as well as my code side to pulling in that information from the Riot API to show you guys how you would go about finding some of the information about champion data. As a reminder, I currently have a course called the Riot API Bootcamp. That's at riot-api-bootcamp.thinkific.com, and it's designed to take you from no coding knowledge whatsoever up to building your own app. So if you have questions like these that you find interesting or want to get started, I'd recommend checking that out. This is actually the syllabus for the entire course. We go from talking about what resources you would use in terms of Python, things like that, what is the Riot API, and then jumping all the way down to the end, you actually go and put together a project where you determine the number of roles on the challenger ladder using those players' last 5 games. So it takes you from nothing all the way up to building a fully functional app. Now, with that being said, let's talk about today's video. Now, what information does the Riot API actually provide us? If you saw my item video, which is on my channel somewhere, this should look rather familiar. You can download the champion data files on the web portal, so it just comes out as a JSON file and you just right click and download, but this has some issues. These files are not always the most accurate, the format changes constantly, and assets are scattered all over in different places. For example, champions.json gives you just a brief summary about the champions, but the champion name.json will give you all the information you need. That being said, the information that Riot provides themselves is not always accurate. The documentation they give you is essentially garbage, which is why I'm making this video to show you how to actually parse the data, how to get good data, and what we can do with it. Just a shout out to 2 projects here. The official Riot source is DD Dragon, but this is, as I spoke about, has some issues. There's some community projects like Merkai Analytics and Community Dragon that provide a lot better resources that I would recommend checking out. Now, I spoke about before how you can download the raw data files. This is what it looks like. It's not really user friendly, and if this changes, we'd have to re-download it every single time. So my goal with this video is to show you how you can automate that process of downloading the data, as well as automate the process of parsing it and pulling out the information without having to do this manually and look at this mess of word salad. Now, how are we going to do this? Same with the item video, we're going to be using the Riot Watcher library. So this is a Python library that allows us to interact with the Riot API using the Data Dragon API endpoint. I spoke about earlier, there's community projects you can use to have more accurate data. It's going to be the same process. I'm just using Data Dragon because it's built into Riot Watcher. Anyway, first up, we load in Riot Watcher. We load in the LoL Watcher component because we're working with League of Legends. Riot Watcher allows you to do things with TFT as well, and I'll probably make a video on that in the future. There's also some Valorant things. It's all on the to-do list. But first up, we load in our API key that tells Riot we are authenticated, we are who we say we are, give us the data I'm asking. So that's what's going on here. Now, the first step in the process of actually getting the information is putting in a region. So we want to tell the Riot API we're from NA1, we want the NA1 data. If you choose any other data, you'll get, for example, in Spanish, which if you're coding in English and you want to work with English, you want NA1. Obviously, if you want a different language, use the appropriate region. Then in this line 24, we get the current version. So this is making sure whatever data we're pulling from the Riot API is the most recent. If we jump over into the raw download from Riot of all of the champion data, you'll notice that we want the data aspect. We don't really care about the type. We know it's champion data. We already specified the version. Really what we want is this data of all the champions. Like, so here's Aatrox. The way we get that is we just specify this data aspect, so we're only getting the data we want. And for our test champion, I just picked Aatrox because it's the top of the list. So here's what happens when you get that specific champion data. It spits out the version, the ID, there's some blurbs. Basically, this is the information we want about the champion. Of course, sometimes we don't want to look at just one specific champion. If you notice here in the description, there's some tags. So it says Aatrox is a fighter and a tank. Let's say we wanted to find out all of the champions Riot considers tanks. That's what this line 34 does here. So this says for every item, so that's X, for every X in our current champ list, so that's all the champions, if the string tank appears in its tags, we're going to add it to this list. Let's print this out. According to Riot, these are all the tank champions. So you have Aatrox all the way to Zac. Now, whether or not you agree with these is a completely different opinion, but this is what Riot tags as tanks. When doing a project, you might not care about the actual stats of the champion. You may want to look at the abilities. So let's dive into that here. If we run our previous code, just printing out the test champ, which was Aatrox, we notice this doesn't actually tell us anything about his abilities, but we want that information. The way you do this is by adding this full equals true variable in your code. So this tells the Riot API, give me all of the information you have. Now, this will take more time when it makes the request, it takes up more space, but you're essentially telling the Riot API you want this more heavyweight version. And again, we're only getting the data that we want. I'm running this on Aatrox again for comparison, and let's run the code. And you can see here, this has everything. So it has all the tooltips, it has the crit per level, it gives descriptions of each one of the abilities, everything. So it's significantly larger than our previous run. Let's look at a specific spell. So let's look at Aatrox's W. So we're looking in his spells aspect, the second item in that list. And we can see here, here's the complete description of Aatrox W. It gives all the information on what it does, how it slows, cooldown. Note that there's no actual damage values in terms of scaling other than the base damage. That's because the Riot API, as a classic, doesn't provide it. It broke sometime earlier in February of 2022 and it's just never got fixed, which is why I would recommend using Murkai or Community Dragon for that. Well, that covers how to access champion data from the Riot API. I hope this helps you guys out a little bit since, again, it's a very subjective question to say what is the best champion in the League of Legends. For me, the best champion is the one I can actually get data on. But again, that's the process. If you want more information on how to start from zero and go into building your own app, I would encourage you to check out the Riot API Bootcamp course. Links on the screen. But I built all of this as well as my latest videos to help you guys get started. It was a large struggle when I was doing this. There was nothing out there to help me, and I don't want anyone else to go through that. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I'll help you through whatever your struggle is. With that being said, I'm going to end the video here.